What can be said about this week's movie, Romeo and Juliet? It is the way Shakespeare intended Romeo and Juliet to be told, with Lemmy Kilmister as the narrator, lots of rockin' hits, lots of violence, some incest, and lots of tits, and lesbian love scenes. I think Shakespeare would have wanted it this way. Now, these videos I do are completely off the top of my head. All the jokes are off the top of my head. I remember everything off the top of my head. This complete improv. And improv, as we know, is the greatest form of entertainment. So strap yourselves on as we dive into Tromeo and Juliet. It starts out with Lemmy giving us the tale of the tape, the introductions to the characters and to the warring parties, the Capulets and the Qs. And we learn shortly after we get introduced why they hate each other. But before we get introduced, we get a scene in a dance club with the one Capulet trying to have sex with his sister. Don't worry, there's more incest coming. This is a very incestuous movie. That's why Shakespeare would have loved it. And then we see the Qs at a tattoo parlor / piercing place, planning to go to a dance club, except for Tromeo, who's planning to call his girlfriend, who is not Juliet yet. Well, the Qs go to the dance club, and they start a fight with the Capulets, and ending in a Capulet missing some fingers, and then we get the explanation of why they hate each other over the Qs losing their film business to the Capulets. And then we go to the police station where a cop says if he ever finds out who starts these fights, he's going to lock him up. Now, there's a lot of... Then we go to Romeo, whose girlfriend is cheating on him, which he later finds out. And then we finally meet Juliet, who's having an affair with the cook, who is female. This is our lesbian love scene. Don't worry, we see more of Juliet and the cook. And then we find out from Juliet, after she has a nightmare about a man's penis coming to life and trying to eat her, that her father threatens to lock those who have nightmares and screams inside the timeout room. We will later see the timeout room. It is nothing like the danger room. And we wish it was. Now, as this movie progresses, it gets more and more violent. And we see Tromeo jacking off at one point. But there's lots and lots of tits in this movie. So if you like tits, you'll like this movie. Now they get ready to go to the Capulet masquerade ball, or costume party, where the Q who cut off the Capulet's fingers goes as a big blue thing with circles on it. I have no idea what he's going as. Honestly, I don't. If someone could explain, I'd love for you to explain. Tromeo goes as a cow, and this is where he finds out his girlfriend's cheating on him, is at the costume party. And this is where he meets Juliet, who we've already found out is engaged to the top meat man in the state, who is a billionaire, so Juliet is a vegan. Well, she's a vegetarian, but she'd be vegan today. Romeo immediately falls for Juliet, and Juliet immediately falls for Tromeo. And they make out, which starts a fight, which starts the Capulets going after Tromeo, as they would, because the warring families are at war. Uh, Tromeo later comes back after Juliet has another nightmare and gets put in the timeout room. Tromeo comes back to see her, and the cook, who has feelings for Juliet and feels the same way Tromeo feels about Juliet, goes to save. Tromeo goes. The hot cook tells Tromeo where to find Juliet, and then they both go in the danger room. Sorry, the timeout room. There are no sentinels in the timeout room. That's the difference. And then Tromeo and Juliet make love. Have sex, make love, whatever you want to call it. And plan to get married. And then do get married. Right after Juliet breaks up with her meat maker boyfriend, who then abuses himself constantly. And then Tromeo and Juliet get matching tattoos and make love all over New York, like every New Yorker does. Except I don't think they made love in the subway, which is probably a good thing, because that would probably be venereal disease city. Now, this leads to Juliet's father. No, this leads to Juliet's cousin finding out about it and telling her father, to which her father makes her reconsider the meat man after beating her. Juliet's cousin goes after Tromeo and kills Tromeo's cousin, to which point Tromeo responds by killing Juliet's cousin. Now the Capulets finally reveal that Tromeo killed him, and the police are after Tromeo, who's hiding in a church. Juliet makes a plan. She sees this Chinese black guy who gives her a potion that will make her ugly. And it does. Tromeo and the Preacher Man, not Preacher Man Bob, R.I.P. Preacher Man Bob, but this preacher, who is a pedophile preacher, goes to rescue Juliet after she's ugly, breaks up with her meat man, who jumps out a window to kill himself. But then Juliet's dad comes in before Tromeo and the preacher come in, and Juliet's dad is planning to fuck her to death. Now, I know Mr. Garrison at one point promised on South Park to fuck people to death. I don't know how you fuck people to death. Maybe it's because I have a small penis and I don't own it, and I don't own a strap on. But he didn't put a strap on. So maybe he has an unusually large penis and can fuck people to death. I'm not exactly sure how you fuck people to death. Maybe it takes a lot of stamina, which I don't have anymore. So he says, I'm going to fuck you to death. He's like, I'm going to fuck you and then you're going to die. So I assume he's going to fuck her to death. I'm not sure how that works. So if you can explain how fucking someone to death works, leave a comment. Because I'm really interested to know this. And I don't want to look it up on Google because I'm afraid that that's just going to pop up a bunch of porn. But Tromeo comes in and stops him. And then they have a battle with her dad, in which her dad finally dies. Juliet kills her dad. And then all turns out well. But then the Capulet mom comes out, and Tromeo's dad comes out at the last minute and revealed the big news. Tromeo is secretly a Capulet because Tromeo's dad is black, and Tromeo is very much white. Actually, he looks Italian. Juliet is white with blonde hair, which is surprising because both her parents have black hair. She looks very much English, and her parents look very much Italian. So I don't know how that one worked. Maybe she's adopted. Maybe her dad fucked somebody else. I'm not sure how this whole thing works. But then again, I see commercials with white families, and I have one black kid. And I'm like, did they steal the black kid? Did they borrow the black kid? Is the black kid a friend of somebody's? Are they just stealing random black kids for these commercials? Or do they just like go, oh, you're a black kid, we need you? Do they just like stop by a black neighborhood and go, oh, we need this black kid now? I don't know how that works. But anyways, they tell Tromeo and him and Juliet are brother and sister, and Tromeo and Juliet was like, we're gonna make this work anyways, which is the perfectly logical thing to do if you're in love with your brother or sister. So we go to one. So we go to. I think it's like 5 years later, 10 years later, something like that. And they've got little incestual children, and they're having a barbecue, and they all look happy. That is the end of Tromeo and Juliet. This is the greatest version of Romeo and Juliet I've ever seen. It's got violence, it's got tits, it's got lesbian love scenes, it's got a guy getting his arm ripped off, it's got a tattoo gun through the eye, which with an eye popping out. It's got a guy getting his face stomped. It's got a pedophile priest. You know, all those things that need to be in Romeo and Juliet in the first place. So I give it 12 out of 10 stars. Check it out, Tromeo and Juliet. It's on Peacock. It's on Tubi. Best version of Romeo and Juliet ever. Come back next week. We're going to watch one of my favorite horror movies. It was Billy Zane's Big Break. Why did my one light just go out? I don't know why one of my lights just went out. These things are warranted, so if it broke, I can get it replaced. Anyways, it was Billy Zane's Big Break. Dead calm. See you next week. I'm going to figure this light thing out before then.